This is the Chi Codes Podcast with your host, Thomas Dockstader.
So, Brian, happy to have you on today. I'm excited about this. You know, we met each other not too long ago, but had a pretty good connection and done some pretty cool stuff together, jumped off a cliff and did an ice bath, and you got to carry me up a hill. I'm sure that was fun.
About that, yeah.
Yeah, you should forget about it.
I just blocked it out.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of know a little bit about the Chi Code and my podcast and stuff, where it's really about, people sharing their stories. And I think there's value in everyone's story. And I think that, there might be something that you say that resonates with someone that I can't get to. Right.
Sure.
And so the goal is to, come on and share interesting stories and hopefully it benefits people. So, today I would love to just, get to know you a little bit and find out what makes Brian tick and maybe some of the stuff you're working on.
Yeah.
So let's start with your upbringing. What you born and raised in Utah or?
Yeah. So born and raised in Utah, very religious home. And from a very young age, it was made very clear that this, following this religion, sticking to what, we were told to do is what you have to do. Right.
Right.
And I really struggled with that. I didn't realize at the time how badly that impacted me and my mental health. But looking back, there were some really big signs that this just wasn't, it just never resonated with me. Right. And no hard feelings towards my parents. They're doing the best that they could.
Sure.
Right? And they thought this is exactly how they should raise me and how I should live my life. But from a very, very young age, I just felt such resistance to what they were telling me I should do. Right. And, it almost felt like my worth and my love and my sense of well-being was based on how obedient I was. I don't love that word, but obedient I was to these rules and these commandments, right? That we had to live. And
were you a troublesome child or were you like a good kid?
No, I was a good kid.
Okay.
I feel like I was a pretty good kid.
Yeah.
Not perfect, but I was respectful and tried to listen to, advice from my parents and follow what they wanted. But there was just always this resistance, right? That I felt like I had to push down, repress. And it kind of throughout my early childhood and into my adolescent years, that, it just continued to be that way. And I really struggled with that because I was I didn't know at the time, but I just wasn't authentic. It just did not resonate with me. Right. And I kind of got into this weird headspace where it was what's wrong with me? How come I'm not, how come I don't want to do these things? How come I don't want to pray and read my scriptures, go to church?
So instead of you thinking that there was something wrong with you thought there was something wrong with you.
Right. And I would do these things, begrudgingly and out of, obligation or duty to my parents, but it never really it never resonated with me. It was never something I wanted to do. And that kind of just compounded. And it was well, you should want this because this is the life. This is what you're supposed to do. Everybody does this.
Yeah.
And so then I kind of started thinking what's wrong with me? Right. And that really I think that was the inception of my lack of self-love, right? Which maybe we can get into that a little bit deeper later on.
Yep.
But that really had a huge impact on me when I was growing up.
Do you think that and you were probably going through that internally as you were growing up, but externally, did you wear a mask? Did you hide it? Did it come out in any way? Or did you serve the mission and do all the stuff and all the things and did you struggle with your parents?
Yeah. Yeah. I was a good kid, right? I made mistakes like all kids do, but I wasn't, I was pretty mild, I would say, in terms of how rebellious or how much I dug in and kind of pushed back against my parents. But yeah, I ended up serving a mission. Crazy story. I played college baseball and my whole life, I felt like I was just like almost like repressed, right? And that sounds maybe a little extreme, but that's how I felt, right? I remember 4 days after I graduated high school, I grew up in Delta, Utah. I moved to Cedar City, Utah to play baseball for the summer, right? And as soon as I had my own apartment, I was living on my own, like I felt so liberated. Like finally I was like, dude, this is what it's like. Like this is like, I'm not being ruled by anything that I don't want to do, right? Like it's completely, whatever choices I make are going to be completely because I want to make them.
Right.
And there's no outside influence that's, that's forcing me or shaping, my perspective on what I want to do. Mm-hmm. And, so I felt like I was thriving. Like that was the best, 4 months of my life. Started college baseball, and we were halfway through fall ball. And one, like maybe side fact here, like my goal was to play professionally, right?
Okay.
Like I wanted to be in the MLB. And mid-fall, freshman year, and granted it's fall ball, so it's not super important, but I was hitting close to 500, which is really good.
Yeah.
Right. And I was just thriving. Like I was socially on the team, like everything. It was just, I had never been happier. And then my dad sent me a letter middle of October. It was an 8-page letter, basically guilting me into going on a mission.
Wow.
And that really rocked me, and I didn't know what to do. And cause I at that point, growing up, it was always not if you go on a mission, it's when you go on a mission. Yeah. You didn't have a choice, right? In my family. And I think my dad could sense that I was kind of like stepping out of this shell and maybe going a different direction than he and my mom would want me to.
Okay.
So he sent this letter, and it rocked me, and I didn't know what to do. It ultimately ended up going on a mission, came back, 2 years, and baseball just wasn't an option at that point, right? Like being away from baseball for 2 years.
Training, all the stuff. Yeah. Just not doing it.
I just couldn't get back into the groove. And so it ended up not working out for me.
Interesting. Okay. Well, that's fun.
So
I wonder, like, realistically, like how long do you think you held on to that? Or maybe you still do. I don't know. But like how, like, cause you were basically at a crossroads, and it sounds like you were like, when you were living at home, like there was like, you felt like there was this feeling of like, I don't know, you weren't good enough or whatever, right?
Yep.
Then you go live on your own. You're kind of getting some validation in like, oh, hey, I'm good at this. I'm making my own decisions. Yeah. Things are going good. Then you get this letter from your dad. Kind of, I mean, you really, it's tough, right? Especially at that age. Mm-hmm. You're still, you're still young, and you still like, okay, I got to listen to my dad. I wonder, like, do you hold on to that from a perspective of maybe saying like you didn't go to the MLB because you went on a mission?
I think a little bit. Like I didn't realize it at the time, and it was just recently actually that I kind of realized, that I am holding a grudge. Like that has impacted me, and I think what's interesting is like it's all about self-worth, right? And self-love. Yeah. And I've struggled with that my entire life. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it was like, first it was the religion and not wanting to live that lifestyle, or didn't feel, like drawn to that. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, okay, that makes me not worthy. That makes me not a lovable person. And then I also had tied my, who I was so closely to baseball that when that didn't work out, it was like, who am I? Like, I was supposed to be a baseball player.
That was your validation.
That was what it was. Yeah.
Now it's gone.
Who
am I?
Who am I? Exactly. Yeah. And so that was a rough transition in my life. Mm. And then ultimately I ended up, meeting a girl, and we got married. And
was it long after you got back from your mission that you got married, or was it
2 years?
2 years. So not right away, but still you were young.
I was still 20. I was 23 when we got married.
Yeah.
Right?
Super young.
And what was interesting is like, I'd come home from my mission, and I'd kind of distanced myself from the church, right? From that religion. And
do you feel that you did that because where did you go on your mission? Was your mission?
I went to New Zealand.
Okay. Yeah. So was your mission like, did you lose? Like, tell me about that. Like when you came back from your mission, was your feelings for the church less because of the baseball thing, or just because of your whole upbringing? Or
honestly, like my mission, I was a very, very obedient missionary.
Okay.
Right. Like I did everything by the book.
It's a cool place to go.
I worked hard. Yeah. It was an incredible place to go. Like there could be a lot.
You can go to
crappy
Kansas
places.
or something.
Yeah. Seriously. Boise or somewhere. So New Zealand was incredible. Right.
Yeah.
But like, again, my validation was tied to how obedient I was. And then in my mind, it kind of warped where it was like, okay, callings, right? Like, or being the assistant to the president for those, that aren't familiar with the LDS mission culture. Like you have a president that oversees the area, right? And so in my mind, it was like, I don't want to be the assistant to the president, but if I were to be the assistant to the president, like that would validate me. That would let me know that I'm loved.
Validate your dad too.
My dad, everything, right? And so, and that didn't happen. But by the time I got home, I was just kind of like, I'm tired of this. Again, it's like, it was very taxing mentally.
Like, where's the fulfillment of all this promise of like,
sure. Especially because I didn't want to do it in the first place. Yeah. Right. Like that's what was hard, is like, I didn't ever really want to do this. And I gave 2 years of my life and I just worked my ass off, and it was grueling. It's grinding. Those that have been on missions, whether it's, with the LDS church or other, humanitarian missions, like they're tough. Mm-hmm. They're grueling.
Yeah.
And when I came home, I was just kind of like, I'm done, and so I was home for a couple of, maybe 6 weeks, 2 months, I don't know. And then I moved back down to Cedar City to start playing or getting ready to play baseball. And at that point, I just kind of checked out. Like church wasn't a thing. Didn't go to church. Didn't do any of that stuff until I met my wife, or ex-wife now, but at the time. And she was very, religious. And there was an expectation there that like, hey, if we're going to date, you have to, practice this faith. And so being a stupid 22-year-old,
sure.
You're like, okay,
yeah,
if that's what it takes. So kind of jumped back into the church and did that for the next 12 or 13 years. Right. And the whole time, like it was all just seeking validation. Like I never wanted to do any of the things that I was doing in the church. Right. Mm-hmm. Like, and so anyway, not to get too much into it, but again, it was just like, I never wanted to do these things, never. And it really, took a toll on who I was and the love that I had for myself.
Yeah. Well, if you did it for so long, you're avoiding really finding out who you are. Yeah. You're avoiding giving to yourself because you're trying to, and the validation is coming from that external validation of like, oh, well, I got a calling, or I got, whatever, or we had a kid, or I don't know, just like it comes from all these different places. But I'm curious, like for not doing that for so long, did you get sick of it, or did you just accept it? Does that make sense? Like, did you just accept this is just what life is?
I think for a while, I kind of fell into that mindset of this is what life is. And
did you ever wonder why you weren't getting fulfillment from the church?
I didn't wonder why, but it always took a negative toll on my mental.
Yeah, I'm sure it did.
Health, right? It's like,
well, I mean, I was heavy in the FLDS, and then I even joined the LDS church. But the biggest complaint I always had is I'm like, okay, I'm doing this everything. I'm praying. I'm doing all the things. Yeah. Where is this fulfillment thing that I'm looking for so heavily? Yep. That was the ultimate thing for me that I'm like, okay, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, same with me, right? And it was finally like I got to a point, and like during my marriage, I went through a lot, as a lot of people do. We were young, and we didn't really know what to do. My ex she's a pretty famous influencer, right?
Okay.
And so that's an interesting story. Maybe I'll dive in a little bit there, but we both graduated, we moved, away from Cedar City, started our lives. We found out we had we were expecting our first baby. And so, she, again, being from a very traditional LDS home, the idea and the expectation was you stop your career and you just be a mom. And that's what she did. But then clearly, probably 6 weeks into this whole process of just being a stay-at-home mom, she wasn't fulfilled. Mm-hmm. And so she started doing hair tutorials actually. Mm. And this was like right in the inception before an influencer was even a thing. Okay. Like we were just, this was 15 years ago,
Okay.
16 years ago at this point. And Pinterest was just a thing. And so anyway, she did a 30 hairstyles in 30-day challenge on her blog. And people started just posting that on Pinterest, and it went viral, right?
Yeah.
We didn't even know.
That's like gold.
At that point, it was like, what is this? Like, this is crazy. And so I was like, hey, like, why don't you take those 30 hairstyles? Because they were just pictures. There was no videos. It was just step-by-step pictures. And then she would like write a description of the step, right? I was like, why don't you put that into a PDF, and we can sell it on your blog for like $5,
yeah.
you know? And so she's like, oh, that's a great idea. So we that was the inception of her becoming an influencer. And again, it went viral on Pinterest, and then Instagram came around. And then because of of her well-known, you know, like I get, what am I trying to say? Because of her, exposure, we made connections with others that were in the space, specifically YouTube. And that kind of just spawned this influencer career that she had created. And so at that time, you know, I was planning to go back to grad school, which I did, and was in school for 2 years. And she was trying to, you know, create her business. We moved to Ohio from Utah.
Oh, wow.
And as soon as we got to Ohio, we'd had 2 kids at that point. We had a son and daughter. As soon as we got to Ohio, probably like a week or 2 after we moved there, we found out we were pregnant, and then it turns out being twins.
Oh, geez.
And so we're, you know, for these little babies, you know, 30 years old, she's 27. First time we've ever been outside of Utah, outside of like the help of our parents, you know.
4 kids.
And now we have 4 kids. And she's building this empire. Like, to her credit, she is incredible with what she's done. And the way that she's been able to build her brand and to really scale has been awesome. But it was very, like, coming back to mental health, like, it was hard. It was taxing, right? And we get to a point where we're in Ohio, I'm building my career, she's building her business, and we just couldn't do it. Like, we just were, you know, barely hanging on. So we decided to move back to Utah, which we did. And that was good. It helped. Like, we had family close, so they could kind of watch the kids, do this and that, but it still was really, really taxing. Excuse me. And I ended up quitting my job. Like, I was on, you know, the trajectory of my career, and I was like, let's quit, you know, and I don't know if it was me or if it was her or if it was both of us, but at the time was like, it makes sense for me to quit my job, because if we put 2, you know, people's efforts into building her business, it's going to go a lot further than if we kind of go our separate ways.
Right.
And so we did that, and it didn't work out. I mean, there were some things that we did together that were really great. Like, we created a company. We created a company called Flourish by Twist Me Pretty. Twist Me Pretty was her Instagram name, YouTube channel, that sort of thing. And what Flourish was an online or an e-commerce, you know, shop site where we did hair products, hair tools, hair accessories.
Yeah.
And that was actually really cool, where that was very fulfilling for me to be able to be a part of that.
Right.
But outside of that little piece, everything else was just really, really taxing. It was really, really hard for me mentally. And the reason why is because I felt like, you know, like, social media has such a, I mean, it's such a great tool, but there's also so much deception, right?
Oh,
or there can be.
Yeah,
and so
it's not reality.
And so, like, you know, she's building her brand, she's posting these pictures, she's getting campaign deals with some very prominent brands, and like, things are just exploding. Like, it's great business wise. But it was so stressful, and behind the scenes, you know, what we were portraying as our family was just perfect little family, and everything's great, and smiles and rainbows and whatnot. It wasn't. Like, behind all that, there was so much anger and frustration and arguing, and, you know, the crying, and like, it was just not authentic at all. And being in that space was, again, coming back to mental health, like, it just really had a huge impact on me. And it got to a point where, like, she and I, we couldn't work together. We would just fight. And so I ended up being a stay-at-home dad, basically, while she was doing her business and building her, you know, the brand that she was, you know, trying to create. And after, 2.5 years of being a stay-at-home dad and not really having a purpose, not being in my masculine, not almost, but yeah, being emasculated by the choices that I'd made, by some of the things that she was doing, all these things cultivating. Like I was just in a deep, deep, dark depression, like probably the worst I've ever been.
Yeah.
Right? Like I felt so terrible and awful.
Yeah.
I remember it was November. It was I think it was like right before Thanksgiving, November of 2018. I was walking down the stairs and I just had this thought. It's like, this isn't life. Like, I'm not like, this is not it. If this is what it is, like, I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it.
I know what you're saying.
And then you go through the stress of the holidays and again, faking everything. And for her brand and her business at the time, like that was the most stressful time with campaigns, because brands are all trying to get, ads out for Christmas and sales. Yep. And so that took a huge toll on us. And I just did not want to be there. Like as we went from November down through Christmas, like I just got worse and worse and worse. And it there came a point where I was like, I'm done. Like I'm going to be out. Like this isn't worth it. And so I remember it was the Friday after New Year's. I had a plan that I was going to check out. Mm-hmm. I knew exactly what I was going to do. And it had gotten to that point where it was like, I didn't think there was any other way. Mm. And I hated that for myself. I hated that for my kids and, for her at the time, my ex, and I just didn't want to be a part of it anymore. But there was no other option, right? At least in my mind.
Right.
And luckily things happened and, circumstances changed, but it was hard, and I think a lot of times as men, especially growing up in the LDS culture, you almost feel like you have to sacrifice everything at your own expense, mm-hmm. because that's what a good man, that's what a good husband, father does, right? But in reality, it's like, that wasn't it for me. Like I gave everything up. And almost my whole life, like my existence for this, right?
And you just stated like the biggest falsehood in this life. And I feel like a lot of religions exploit it, mm-hmm. where it's this idea of like service, right? Which is, service is amazing. Yeah. Absolutely it is. The problem is, if you do not take care of yourself first, mm-hmm. it will destroy you.
Yep.
It will absolutely destroy you. Like, dude, there you are. You're taking care of your kids. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, quote unquote, fulfilling stuff. But if you can't, like, if you don't know who you are and you're not watering your own plant, you're gonna die. Yeah. It doesn't matter. Yep. It doesn't matter. And I feel like a lot of times the church will say, hey. And a lot of people say, well, hey, give to others and, it'll come back to you. It'll come back to you. But if you're forgetting about yourself,
sure.
And especially, I think this is just like a plague that's happening right now, is like, we're blurring the lines of like, what is, like roles are important. A woman has the capability to bring warmth and love to the home like a man cannot do.
Sure.
Period. They just can't do it. And a man brings strength and protection, and some things that just can't be brought by anything other than a man. Yep. If we get out of those roles, it starts to create imbalance. And I'm sure you probably thought and tried to think about, okay, well, maybe I could do this, maybe I could do that. I'll go to the gym, I'll do this, right? Like, but it wasn't working. Like you were out of balance.
Yeah. We were completely out of balance, right? Like I was emasculated. I'll be honest. Like I was living in my feminine almost 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. And she was in her masculine. And I think as a man, that's not how it's supposed to be. Like we weren't meant to be in our feminine that much, right? Like we need to be in our masculine. We need to lead. We need to provide. We need to protect.
Yeah. You feel like you lose value if you don't do that.
Exactly. If you're not doing that day in, day out. And it's like, you're never good enough, or you're never this, you're never that. Like, you're not living up to that, whether it's your spouse that's telling you this, or whether it's your mind or subconsciously you're feeling that way. Like, it takes a toll on you, and it's just not good for your health. Right. And we got, like it was a rough time, you know, and like, I'm thankful for the success that she had, you know, with her business, and is continuing to have with her business and her brand and her influence. But like, it came at a cost, you know, our family and, my mental health. And it was all about, like, the thing that was frustrating about all of the social media was like, it was all about how many views, how many likes, how much money can we make? It wasn't authentic at all. But then the caveat, or maybe not the caveat, the kicker to that was like, we portrayed like it was just perfect. Like, we were just the perfect little family. And I remember when she announced that, you know, like, we were separating or whatever, like, people were shocked, because they're like, we would have had no idea that you guys were, you know,
that's so often
based on what you're doing, you know. And it was all about views and likes and money. And it was actually, you know, interesting. As I remember, I swore I would never have a dog. Like, I'm not a pet guy. Right. But, there was a lot of pressure from my ex to have a 5th child, because she felt like that would help her brand. Right. That would help.
Are you serious?
Boost views, boost content, like brand deals, all the things, right? Engagement. Because I mean, who doesn't love a cute little baby?
Everyone.
Right? Everybody does. Yeah. And I remember I was just like, I'm not having another child like that. We're already just so strapped, and there's no way we could do that. And so I ended up going and buying a dog to kind of help replace that, or to, you know, to like fill that void. And no, it didn't. I mean, it did for a minute, but that was it.
Oh my gosh.
So it was just a really grueling place, and that I was in mentally. And, you know, like, I look back, and it's astounding how far I've come over the last 6 years, and where my mental health is. And, you know, my whole purpose of, you know, of wanting to be on podcasts and to, you know, start a brand and a company and these types of things is to really focus on men's well-being and their mental health and their sense of worthiness and self-love. Because I think a lot of times as men, we don't get that from anywhere else other than ourselves. And knowing how to validate yourself and to know that you're good enough and that you're worthy is a huge skill that most of us don't understand.
Not only do we not understand it, we don't know where to look to go and learn how to do it.
Yep.
And also, you're also really, I mean, just growing up as a man, you're really like looked at, you for some reason, you almost know it in your bones that you can't be vulnerable, because being vulnerable shows weakness, and then you're going to get beat up or you're going to get bullied or, you know, whatever. Right. And so then you're trying to put on this facade of like, hey, I'm fine. I don't need anything. But to your point, it slowly wears at you and beats you down. And then what we see is a lot of people just end up ending their lives. Yep. I know dozens of people who have that I intimately knew growing up with because of that very reason, where it was like, they don't have it. They don't even know how to.
Yeah.
So dude, it's so crazy. I haven't seen my youngest brother in 6 years. He lives on the street, and he recently got put in jail, and then he got into a halfway house.
Okay.
Right when he got put into the halfway house, he found out my mom was dying, and we were able to call the halfway house, and he was able to call and just at least be on the phone with her. And he actually got to come and see her before she died. Dude, that kid started doing heroin when he was 14 years old, and now he's 33, I think. Yeah. He didn't know how. I went and saw him yesterday. We talked for about 2 hours. He didn't know. He had no idea how to like do anything. The only thing he knew was drugs. Yeah. He didn't know how to do anything like mentally. And this is a proof in our society that we all default to this thing, to covering up, to numbing, to, you know, whatever it is. Right. everybody finds this like something to cover it up.
Yeah.
That's basically, and because why? Because we don't want to freaking kill ourselves.
Exactly.
Like that's literally how bad it is.
Yeah.
It makes me sick to think about that. Like to think that he was so lost that he said he didn't care if he woke up in a gutter. He didn't care if he right. And it sounds like to me, you were like getting to that place, even though you guys you had children, you had money, you had a wife, you had this, that. It doesn't matter if you don't it doesn't matter what you have, whether you don't have anything at all or you have everything. If you don't take care of yourself, but most of us, even if we said, well, I want to, we don't know how.
We don't know. Yeah, no, that's exactly how it is. Right. And I think that was the biggest challenge that I've had to face over the last 6 years since separating, being divorced, is how do I love myself? What do I need to do to be an advocate for me? And how do I put myself first without feeling, selfish or guilty for doing so? And I think that's what's really crazy about that whole concept is like, we shouldn't feel guilty. We shouldn't feel like we're neglecting other people or other responsibilities, because to your point earlier on in the podcast, like if you don't water your own plant, you're going to die. You're going to wither away and die. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Well, and the thing is too, is if you truly, and I've told my story a bunch of times on here, but if you get to a place where you actually do love yourself, dude, you're so full and you just want to give to so many people. You have infinite energy to give all the time.
Sure.
Because you feel so fulfilled.
Yeah.
And that's like what I want to help everyone get to that place, because it is possible, because just like you, I've been in that same place. I've been in the place where I'm going to end my life. Yeah. I've been at that end of my rope. Right. And I didn't know what I was supposed to do. So I'm curious so when you got to that place in 2018, spoiler alert, you didn't do it. So what was like, what happened? Like what happened that you obviously got divorced, but like, I want to understand, because for guys that are listening, right? People that are listening in general, you got to this breaking point. What was that process of like, you got divorced, but what was that process of like getting to a place where you started to get on that journey, right? Like it's because it's a long one. Yeah. It doesn't happen overnight.
No, and I think that's the thing that's challenging, is that it isn't an overnight thing, right? Like it's taken me 6 years to get to where I am, and I still have a lot of work, a lot of progress to go.
Yeah.
Before I feel, and maybe that's the whole point of all this, is like you never reach a finish line. It's just continuing to love yourself deeper and feel more worthy and be more authentic with who you are.
There's a chapter in my book, so it's called "There Is No Mountaintop."
Yeah,
that's the chapter.
That's exactly right.
Because to your point, dude, the worst day of my life was when I bought a Porsche. Because I thought,
like, this
when I get that, then I will be happy.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, oh crap, what happened?
Yeah. So for me, it was like, obviously, spoiler alert, I didn't go through with it. I'm here, but I think I found a purpose, right? And it was a small thing. Like at the time, I wanted to become an online fitness coach, right? Okay. And so I was like, that's my purpose. I'm going to invest my time and my energy into getting in shape, because I had this theory that, like, if you're not jacked and in shape yourself, like, why would anybody put confidence and trust in you to become their fitness trainer, right?
I mean,
in my mind, it makes sense, right?
That does make sense.
I don't think I'm the only one that thinks that.
That does make sense.
But so, like, from January, February, March, April, until we separated, that was my focus, was dialing in my diet, making sure I was, being healthy with the things that I was putting in my body, working out, being very conscious of all of that. And that little purpose is what propelled me into this journey, right? And it was interesting because when I like I said earlier, I quit my job, my career. I was just working for my ex, and then eventually was just stay-at-home dad, Mr. Mom. When I separated, like, I didn't have anything. Like, I'd been out of the workforce for 3 years, and it was a challenge to get back in. So I went and I worked for $8 an hour at Uinta Golf, a local golf shop, and just trying to skate, to skate by and make ends meet, And I think too, like then I kind of like, I've always been a big golfer, right? Always been a big golfer. But at that point it was like, that was my purpose again, right? Like kind of put the fitness coaching thing on the side because of, circumstances, but like golf was my outlet, like mentally. Like I knew that no matter how badly, I was feeling about myself or my circumstances, my situation, going through the divorce and the mental toll that takes on somebody and the emotions that are surrounded by that. Like I knew that if I went to the golf course and I was there for 4 hours and playing 18 holes, like I could just disconnect. Like that was my therapy. And that, that summer, like that's what got me through, like, cause there were times where again, it was like, what am I doing here? Is it worth it even to still be alive?
Yeah.
But that was the outlet. And then it was just these little things, and I look back over the last 6 years and that's the story that I would say is like finding little goals, little things that you want to achieve and focusing, like hyper focusing on those. And then you feel this sense of accomplishment and the sense of worth. Right. And then you can build upon that. And that's the process or the structure that I've implemented in my life over the last, 5 years to get to where I am now.
Yeah. I mean, look, based on what you're telling me, I see a little bit of a pattern, and like the goal, well, not the goal, the solution to this is that eventually you're going to find, and you're going to come to this place where you're going to realize that everything outside of you can't fulfill you.
Sure.
Ultimately.
100%.
Whether it's your kids, a wife, a job, a hobby, whatever, eventually it will run dry.
Yeah.
And you'll keep searching and searching and searching, and you will not find it, because the only way that you can feel fulfilled is go on that journey to go inside. And what happens when we do that? It's scary as fuck.
Yeah.
It's like a deep, dark abyss.
You don't want to go. Most people won't.
They won't,
very reason,
dude.
because they don't want to step into that hole.
They won't.
But you have to.
You have to. And it is, I believe it's everyone's job to agree to take that journey.
Yeah.
And a lot of us avoid it, and we don't do it. And we continue to follow those same, like, I talk about this a lot, but it's like people are super fulfilled with certain things. And it's like, but what if that's gone?
Yeah.
But what if that's gone? Then what?
Yeah.
And you have to start auditing yourself and saying like, okay, what am I anchoring outside of myself? Like if it was to be eliminated, then what would I do? And, I think about that a lot, because I've experienced a lot of loss in my life. And when I lost my dad 20 years ago, it was freaking devastating, dude. And I did not have a good relationship with him.
Yeah.
And I think that was the more devastating part about it, because I didn't. But after a long time of like healing, then I lost my daughter. And then now I've just recently lost my mom. But I'll tell you this, in losing my mother recently, it's different, because I wasn't anchored outside of myself, if that makes sense. It's super sad and it's super hard, but also I'm at peace with it, because I saw her, I had value in her, and she wasn't an anchor for me. She wasn't, we appreciated each other's company, but in losing her, I don't feel like I've lost her.
Yeah. Yeah.
If that makes sense.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes I agree 100%. And it's like, I haven't lost anyone close to me, so I can't really resonate, or empathize with that. But like being single and dating, right? Like there's always that adage, like if you're not okay alone and you're seeking validation, and the only way you can be happy is if you have somebody by your side, you're never going to be happy.
Everybody can feel that energy, dude.
Yeah. Like you have to be, and I think like, it's not just relationships, it's not just dating, but it's everything in life. Like you have to be at peace with who you are.
Yep.
And know that no matter what happens on the outside, the exterior of your life, interiorly, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm whole.
Yeah.
I know who I am. I know my worth. I know my, like the love that I'm worthy of. and you can weather a lot of storms that way.
Well, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Like, it doesn't matter what's external because it can't be taken away from you, regardless of how much physical pain you're put through or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. And dating is a hard one because when you learn to like or love someone so much, and then they're gone, it's an immediate check of self-worth.
Sure.
Because you're like, well, why didn't they like me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's hard. It really is. I mean, I've been through a bunch of relationships, but that one took me a long time to conquer. And I finally realized it wasn't until I got to that place of like understanding who I was. So now, all right. So now, you weathered through a divorce, which is freaking, they just suck. I don't care who you are. They're horrible.
Never good.
They're terrible.
Never easy.
And well, I've done two. I've done a divorce without having a child and a divorce with having a child. Obviously the one with a child is much harder.
Yeah. Much more difficult.
Much harder. So you're weathering through that. And then, now you are, we're in the same men's group together, which is absolutely awesome.
Yep.
Learning a ton, making great relationships, which is awesome. But you are also, you have a company that you've mentioned, but tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So like I said earlier, I'm a huge golfer, love golf. And I've always wanted to delve into that world and see like, how can I make golf part of, my life really, and it took me a minute to figure out how to do that. And as I was going through this process and this has been a goal of mine for 5-6 years, right? Like I just didn't really know how to get there, and nothing really kind of resonated or made sense. But, as I was going through, the last 5 years and trying to learn to love myself and appreciate myself, forgive myself for things that I'd done in the past, et cetera, like, it finally kind of dawned on me that like, why not create a golf company that supports mental health and self-love, right? And so I decided, that's what I'm going to do. That's going to be my mission in life, is to start this company. Relentless Golf Company is what it's called. And the reason for the name Relentless is because that's how we have to be, right? We have to be relentless in every aspect of our lives, whether that's persevering through hard times, whether that's relentlessly loving ourselves, relentlessly pursuing our passions. Like so that name really resonated with me. And so that's kind of what I'm doing is like, I'm in the process of starting a company that's going to focus on golf apparel, golf accessories, head covers, et cetera. But it's going to be like the branding is going to be more around mental health, right? So it's not just solely a golf company, but it's going to help men and women, I guess, as well, really understand what their worth is and know that no matter what's going on, if we're relentless with that pursuit, we're going to come out on the other side. We'll be good.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, a lot of guys find a lot of solace in golf.
Yeah.
a lot.
Way out. It's an outlet.
I love golf. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm good, but I play a lot, and it is, I think it's a highlight of the week. Right. And I think especially for guys who, have kids and married and all that stuff, it's like that escape, and it's some brotherhood and like all of those things that, to your point, it's not really being framed in the right way, because I think the way that society frames it as it's like, oh, he wants to go play golf again. It shouldn't be that.
No.
In fact, I argued with my last wife about golf specifically, and I said, you should be encouraging me to go do it because from a perspective of like, it's like a mental health day.
Oh,
it's
exactly,
it's like you will benefit as much as I will,
if not more so,
because
right?
I will be a better person to be around.
Exactly.
And I think that, dude, so often we don't encourage people in general to like take that time. And the thing is, we also feel like bad, right? Oh, I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't do this for myself. I'm not worth it. It's like, you have to do it for yourself.
Exactly. You have to. Yeah. And I think that's you hit on it. I didn't allude to this, but you hit it exactly on one of the points, is like, there is something mentally clarifying about going out and playing golf, right? And maybe golf isn't your thing. Maybe it's going hunting. Maybe it's bowling, like whatever it is.
Doing something for
mountain
yourself.
biking or running, like it doesn't matter. But like taking care of yourself and having that outlet where you can go and mentally, you know, I don't want to say check out, but almost check out from all the other shit that's going on in your life.
Yeah.
Right? And even if your life is great, you know, like there's still all this shit that you're worried about. And so it's like,
dude, golf is a form of meditation.
It is.
It really is.
Honestly, like that's what got me through that 6 months that I was going through the separation and divorce.
Yeah.
Like that 6 months, like I just knew, like no matter how shitty I felt, no matter what was going on, I could go and spend 4 hours on the course and just check out. Not think about it.
You think the reason for that is because it's hard to think about other stuff while you're trying to play?
I guess so.
Because you're just like, all right, let me see here. This is like, it takes all your focus.
Yeah. Golf is a very mentally grueling sport.
Yeah.
Right? Like you do have to really focus, and maybe that's part of it. But for me, it was like, it was something I enjoyed. Mm-hmm. And while I was there, like I could kind of just let everything else just be for a second. And then just, you know, knowing that it's going to be there when I get done, but also knowing that the next 4 hours are going to allow me to kind of recharge and not worry about it. Because when you're worrying about something, whether it's a divorce or whether it's business or whether it's relationships that maybe aren't going the way that you want, like it's always on your mind. Like it's completely taxing.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like, like 4 hours, I'm good. And then once that 4 hours is up, again, it's right back in the front of my mind. But I felt like I was better prepared and had some mental bandwidth available to deal with that.
Yeah. Dude, I don't think there's a better thing than middle of July, 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Perfect blue skies. You're out on the course, hole one, sprinkler.
Yep, sun's coming up.
Dude, there's not
so
better.
beautiful.
There's nothing better than that.
It's incredible.
It is so awesome. I freaking love it.
Yeah.
Sophie always says to me, she's like, you go so early. I'm like, in the summer, it's the best.
Yeah.
Like you just go first thing.
First thing, get it out of the way.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Yeah. No, but I think like going back to your point, like advocating for some sort of relief or release from life, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's golf or mountain biking, whatever it is, like we need that. And I read something recently that it said that men for mental health and awareness need to have 2 guys nights a week, right? And I don't know, I just read, I didn't dive into it to know what they were basing that off of and the data they had, but it does make sense. Like going out and being with your friends recharges us as men. Like we're like, as men, I feel like we are supposed to be social with other men, right? Yeah. It charges us. It helps us become more masculine. It helps us release all the stress and all the built up anxiety and pressures of being a man and being a provider and a protector and all these leading your families, right?
Yep.
And so being able to go be with like-minded men, and again, this is what's great about WAT and the leadership group that we're in, is that there's 50 dudes. That's our whole point of joining this group, is to become better men,
right?
To associate with those other 49 that are going to help elevate us and lift us to, the heights that we know we can get to.
Yeah. And I think also like a thing to highlight there is that, when you find, let's say good men, it's not, we're getting together and just being
idiots.
Everybody's in integrity. There's no, there's no substances or anything. It's just like good quality, like time, right? Spent together.
Exactly.
And there's no, it's not just partying or something. In fact, it's the opposite of that, really.
Yeah,
but it is a release because it's like, you're on the same level and saying like, hey, I understand your problem.
Exactly.
I understand where you're coming from, how you feel, right? Like I get that, the pressures of being the in a household and like, dude, my son is turning 13 and I'm just like, he's my oldest and I'm just like, just racking my brain. Like, how do I help this kid become a good man so that he doesn't have to go and find something when he's in his mid 40s after he's had a whole bunch of stumblings and fall downs? Like, how do I help him now?
Right.
And it's like this pressure. There's like this pressure to like, how do I do that? And so, in my mind, it's like surround yourself with those other people that, because a lot of times we don't want to ask for help either. Like men in general, it's something built into us.
Just figure it out on our own.
We just hate to ask for help.
Yeah.
That's so cool, dude. We had, so to let everybody know, a weekend ago, we went on a retreat and we had to do this one activity where they put us in groups of 6 people, 6 men. And then they told us all to pick up rocks, that were bigger than one hand. Right. And then everybody had to carry the rock, and they said, don't let the rock hit the ground the whole time we're doing this. Then they said, oh, okay, so everybody stop. Now the largest person, they can't walk, so you have to carry him. So we had to work together and figure out who had to carry the rocks, who had to carry the other people, who was going to do this and that. There's lots of communication. And I found a ton of value in that practice because it's such a great example of like, we as men don't want to ask for help.
Yeah.
We don't want to tell people that we're struggling. We don't want to, like, oh, I don't want you to carry my rock. I'll do it. And this and that. Right. It's like, but when we do all have that same goal in mind of helping each other,
right,
it becomes really fun and easy. Right. Yeah. It's not like this pain.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that, that exercise that we did. And there's synergy, right, between the 6 of us.
Yeah.
We were in the group together, as you mentioned earlier, and we had to carry you. And it was like, okay, who's going to carry the rocks? Because there's 6 rocks, and if I'm carrying you and someone else is carrying you, there's
3 of you
rocks.
had to carry me.
3 of us actually carried you. So 2 people were carrying, 6 rocks.
Yeah.
It was interesting, but and I think like almost, it was vulnerable, right? Like as a man, like you don't ever want to say, I can't do this, right? Especially if you're given a task, like the instruction before the activity started was go find a rock that you're going to carry the entire time, right? Or maybe that wasn't the exact word, but it was like, you're going to have this rock, like don't get something too big, don't get something too light. And then once we got into it a little bit, into the hike and the walk, it was like, okay, now circumstances changed completely. And you didn't really, you didn't know that was going to happen, but you had to adjust and you had to adapt. And because, to your point, we were all had the same goal and same vision, and we were comfortable and we could be vulnerable with each other and we could say this or that, whatever. We didn't feel any judgment. We were able to, to make it work.
Yeah.
And persevere. And I think, that's a pretty good analogy for life.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's like, whether it's friends or family, or even with your spouse or your partner, whatever, it's like being able to have those goals and communicate and then be vulnerable as circumstances change and being able to adapt.
Yeah.
Makes life so much easier.
Yeah, it does. And also I think that the contrast from like, we all have friends, right? But there's like certain friends groups where it's like we're all giving each other a hard time about everything and calling each other wimps and this and that. It's not an environment of building people up. It's not an environment of fostering like vulnerability and like allowing people to share their real feelings. Yeah. So then even in those groups, you actually feel more isolated because then you have to put on a bigger mask of like, oh, it doesn't bother me. I'm fine. And this and that. So I think there's a lot of power in the ability to like bring men together, but then also get them to show their vulnerability with each other. And that then creates that feeling of like, oh my gosh, if something does happen in my life, I really can reach out.
Yep.
Because I'm sure you had friends when in 2018.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you didn't feel like you could talk to any of them about what was going on.
Oh, for sure. Like, I had, friends.
Yeah.
But it was like not real friends, not friends that I felt I could go and say, hey, listen, like my life, even though it looks from the outside looks incredible, like I'm struggling.
Yeah.
Like I am not happy. I'm in a really dark spot right now. And I just didn't have that support group. Right. And so I think, as men, society has kind of told us like, you have to be stoic. You have to be able to just wear it on the chin and not show any emotion because that's not manly.
Yep.
But and I think there might be a little bit of truth to that. Like as men, like we have to persevere. Like shit's going to get hard. It's going to be hard sometimes, and you can't just cower. You can't just back down. You have to persevere. You have to be relentless, right? But that being said, like there's a lot of power in having a support group to, be vulnerable and to be able to express your feelings and show emotion. And as in doing that, it actually propels us to be a better version of ourselves.
Yeah.
of ourself than if we were to just keep it bottled in.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think that's what's so great about, the group that we're in, and my whole mission of Relentless Golf Company is like letting people know that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to have feelings and to feel, whatever feeling it is that you have, like that's okay. But we oftentimes in society, or at least, in my examples or my perception is that like, that's not okay. Like as a man, you just sweep it under the rug, you deal with it, and, go about your day tomorrow.
And I think that's I say this all the time, like time doesn't heal all wounds. Unfortunately, like all that suppression, it comes out.
Eventually it will.
Yeah. And just like for you, you're an example of that when you were, you were suppressing a lot of your feelings, and like, it just came to a head.
Eventually it will.
Yeah.
Eventually it will. Like you can't sweep it under the rug and expect it to just magically disappear.
Yeah.
Right?
It won't.
You can't.
And dude, I'm telling you, I talk to people all the time, but like that stuff, there's stuff in your childhood that is still there.
Yeah.
There's stuff in your childhood that's still there. I talked to my brother about this yesterday, and he started tearing up and crying because I was like, dude, there's stuff when you were like, let me show you how to go find that stuff, because that's the reason you're still sitting out here on the street, because you don't feel like you're good enough for some reason. We got to go find out what those things are that are those false beliefs that are built in you, that are continuing you to destroy yourself, because you don't believe that you're worthy.
Yeah.
Like,
no, it's tragic, honestly. Right. Like, and so many of us, I at some point or another are in that same trap.
Yeah.
And, like as you repress and you don't express how you're feeling, or even like come to terms with the feelings that you're actually feeling, right? Like you can't be happy. You can't be you.
Yeah.
And, so I think that's such a big part of mental health, is being able to feel, to express your emotions and have an outlet to be able to discuss those. And a lot of times, like, like in the men's group, let's say, like that we're in with Watt and Jimmy, it's like, we're not expecting these guys to solve our problems, right? Like we know no one's going to come save us, but it gives us an ability to kind of express and to open up and to explore how we're feeling. And then maybe get some feedback, sometimes not, but at least get it out there. So then we know what we need to do to be able to move forward.
I think seeing other people share and seeing other people be vulnerable is like a lesson in itself. Because then you're like, oh man, I didn't realize that you were experiencing, you don't look like you would experience that. I can't believe you would experience that.
Yeah.
Cause we all put on a persona that, the external doesn't understand what the internal, right? They don't, it doesn't see it. And so we think, oh, that guy's got it all figured out. And then it's like, oh, let me tell you my story.
Actually,
and then like, holy smokes.
Struggling. Yeah.
That's crazy, man. Well, look, I mean, so you're going to start this company. I think you keep us surprised as to what's going on, but is there anything else you want to share with the group before we close?
No, man, this has been great. Thanks for letting me join. It's been a pleasure chatting with you and sharing my story and talking about, life and mental health and how important it is, and trying to figure out, how we can truly authentically love ourselves and feel worthy of the love and the life that we want. And so thanks. Appreciate it.
Amen, brother. Thank you.